The Horrors of PennHurst Asylum. Introduction. The screams of the forgotten echo in the hallways of PennHurst Asylum, voices of pain, fear, and perhaps rage. Can the darkness of a place leave an imprint that endures for decades, refusing to be silenced? PennHurst Asylum, a sprawling campus nestled in Spring City, Pennsylvania, was once seen as a beacon of hope, a sanctuary for society's most vulnerable. Opened in 1908 as the PennHurst State School and Hospital, its purpose was to provide care and education for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. However, as the years passed, this institution became infamous for something far darker. Reports of abuse, neglect, and inhumane treatment transformed PennHurst from a place of hope to a house of horrors. From overcrowded rooms filled with the wails of the suffering to the unthinkable methods of control employed by staff, the asylum's reputation spiraled into a chilling narrative of systemic cruelty. But what remains most unsettling are the lingering questions. Did PennHurst's walls absorb the anguish of its inhabitants? And does it still reverberate today in unexplained, paranormal phenomena? Shuttered in 1987 following exposés and lawsuits that unveiled its horrific conditions, the PennHurst campus now stands as a haunting relic of the past. Visitors, paranormal investigators, and urban explorers claim to feel its heavy, oppressive energy, and many have reported ghostly encounters, disembodied voices, and even physical sensations of being touched or pushed by unseen forces. The horrors of PennHurst Asylum extend far beyond its grim history. They delve into the realm of the inexplicable. What secrets are locked within its decaying walls? Are the spirits of the abused and neglected still trapped, seeking justice or revenge? And what can PennHurst teach us about humanity's darker impulses? This is not just a story about a haunted asylum. It's a confrontation with the darkness that festers when society looks away. Join us as we explore the horrors of PennHurst Asylum, a tale of cruelty, sorrow, and perhaps the unrelenting presence of those who refuse to be forgotten. The background story of PennHurst Asylum. The story of PennHurst Asylum begins with a vision for compassionate care but ends in tragedy. Originally known as the PennHurst State School and Hospital, it was established in 1908 in Spring City, Pennsylvania, to care for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, mental illnesses, and physical ailments. The campus, spread over 1,400 acres, featured dormitories, classrooms, recreational areas, and its own power plant and farm. It was designed to provide a peaceful environment for residents, far from the bustling cities, and was seen as a lifeline for families with children or relatives with disabilities. However, by the 1920s, PennHurst quickly became overwhelmed. Originally meant to house around 500 individuals, it soon took in thousands due to the increasing demand. Overcrowding strained resources, and the staff-to-patient ratio plummeted. The once promising vision of a caring institution turned into a grim reality. During this time, societal views on disabilities and mental illness were influenced by eugenics, and many people with disabilities were seen as burdens on society. PennHurst became a place for not only those with severe disabilities but also orphans, people with epilepsy, and those with mild mental illnesses. Some individuals were committed by court order, while others spent their entire lives in the institution. As overcrowding worsened, conditions within PennHurst deteriorated. Dormitories meant for a few dozen residents housed hundreds, and hygiene standards plummeted. Many residents lived in filthy conditions, and resources such as food and medical supplies became scarce. The institution, once designed as a sanctuary, became a human warehouse where individuals were stripped of dignity. Undertrained and overworked staff struggled to manage the growing population, leading to neglect and abuse. Former residents and employees later described a culture of indifference where the needs of residents were ignored. The horrors of PennHurst remained largely hidden until the 1960s when a series of investigative reports revealed the appalling conditions. The most notable exposé was a 1968 television report by journalist Bill Baldini titled "Suffer the Little Children." The documentary revealed overcrowding, neglect, and abuse, showing residents tied to beds, left unattended, and malnourished. The footage shocked the nation and sparked public outrage, leading to a broader conversation about the treatment of individuals with disabilities in institutional settings. In response to the exposé, legal action was taken against PennHurst. The landmark case Halderman versus PennHurst State School and Hospital was filed in 1974, accusing the institution of violating the constitutional rights of its residents. The case exposed the systemic failures at PennHurst, including physical and emotional abuse, lack of education, and denial of basic human rights. After years of legal battles, PennHurst was ordered to close. In 1987, the facility officially shut its doors, and its remaining residents were either returned to their families or transferred to community-based care programs. While the closure marked the end of an era, the legacy of pain and suffering remained. Even after its closure, PennHurst's dark history continued to haunt the site. The abandoned buildings, with their decaying infrastructure, became a chilling reminder of the suffering within. Urban explorers, thrill-seekers, and paranormal investigators flocked to the site, drawn by tales of ghostly apparitions, disembodied voices, and unexplained phenomena. Today, PennHurst is remembered not only for its haunted reputation but also as a symbol of the failure of institutional care. It stands as a stark reminder of the importance of treating all individuals with dignity and respect. The history of PennHurst Asylum is one of high hopes, tragic failures, and lasting scars, offering a powerful lesson about the consequences of neglect and the need for compassionate care. The incident. To understand the dark legacy of PennHurst Asylum, one must explore the incidents that transformed it from a place of supposed sanctuary to a house of horrors. These events spanned decades and revealed a tapestry of systemic neglect, abuse, and eerie occurrences, culminating in human suffering and a reputation for supernatural phenomena. Overcrowding and neglect. At its peak, PennHurst housed over 3,000 residents, far beyond its intended capacity of 500. Dormitories designed for dozens were packed with hundreds, leaving little room for movement. Privacy was non-existent, and vulnerable residents, including children with severe disabilities, endured filthy conditions. Many lay in their own waste for hours, with a pervasive stench of urine and vermin infestations. Overwhelmed and undertrained staff struggled to meet basic needs like food, clean water, and clothing. Mealtime was a harrowing experience, with inadequate and poorly prepared food. Abuse and mistreatment. As conditions worsened, abuse became rampant. Physical abuse included hitting, restraining, and tying residents to beds. Those perceived as difficult were subjected to harsh punishments, such as isolation in dark rooms. Verbal abuse was common, with residents belittled and mocked. Medical abuse was also prevalent. Residents underwent unnecessary medical procedures, including tooth extractions and experimental treatments, often used as a method of control rather than a therapeutic tool. The incident that sparked outrage. In the 1960s, a young boy with mild developmental delays was subjected to horrific abuse at PennHurst, including being tied to his bed and left unattended. His parents, believing he was receiving proper care, were devastated when they learned of his suffering. This case sparked public attention, leading parents and journalists to question the institution's practices. The 1968 exposé, Suffer the Little Children. In 1968, investigative journalist Bill Baldini aired a documentary, Suffer the Little Children, which exposed the scale of PennHurst's atrocities. The footage showed children with visible disabilities sitting naked on cold floors, residents tied to wheelchairs or beds, and staff indifferent to their suffering. The exposé shocked the nation and led to advocacy for systemic reform in the treatment of individuals with disabilities. Legal fallout and the Halderman case. Following the exposé, legal action was taken against PennHurst. In 1974, a lawsuit was filed on behalf of Terry Lee Halderman, a resident who suffered significant injuries due to neglect and abuse. The case highlighted violations of basic human rights, and testimonies from former residents and staff painted a damning picture of widespread neglect. Some residents were denied education, medical care, and contact with their families. Paranormal phenomena and the asylum's closure. As the legal battles unfolded, PennHurst's reputation grew even darker. Staff and residents reported eerie occurrences such as doors slamming shut, disembodied voices, and apparitions of former residents. These reports fueled paranormal interest in the site, attracting ghost hunters and enthusiasts. The combination of public outcry and legal scrutiny led to PennHurst's closure in 1987. Its residents were either returned to families or placed in community-based care programs. Despite the closure, PennHurst's legacy of suffering endures. A legacy of horror. The incidents at PennHurst Asylum reflect not only the failure of one institution but also broader societal neglect of individuals with disabilities. The asylum's history serves as a reminder of what can happen when vulnerable individuals are left voiceless and forgotten. Today, the decaying buildings stand as both a symbol of systemic failure and a magnet for those seeking to uncover its secrets, whether historical or supernatural. PennHurst's legacy endures, urging society to confront the darkness of the past and work toward a more compassionate future. The treatment of children, a lost generation. Children at PennHurst bore the brunt of the institution's failings. Those with mild learning disabilities were often grouped with those with severe impairments, leading to chaotic environments where individual needs were ignored. Many children were tied to cribs or confined to wheelchairs, leading to physical deformities. Educational opportunities were minimal, and what little instruction was given was inconsistent and rudimentary. The psychological toll was profound, as children lived in constant fear of both staff and older residents, creating a cycle of victimization. The underground tunnels, a network of secrets. Beneath the PennHurst campus lay a network of underground tunnels, originally built to transport supplies and residents during bad weather. Over time, these tunnels became associated with darker purposes. Allegations arose that they were used to move residents discreetly, particularly those who had been abused or injured, or to conduct punishments or medical procedures away from prying eyes. The tunnels became a symbol of PennHurst's hidden horrors and secrecy, medical malpractice and the cure mentality. In an era of medical uncertainty, PennHurst relied heavily on outdated and harmful practices. Residents were subjected to forced sterilizations and electroshock therapy as methods of control. Physical restraints were common, and many residents were sedated with tranquilizers to keep them manageable. Overmedication masked the true extent of suffering and prevented residents from voicing complaints. The forgotten dead. Death was common at PennHurst due to neglect and poor living conditions. Many deaths went unreported, and the institution had its own cemetery with unmarked graves for unclaimed bodies. Families often abandoned relatives without inquiring about their well-being, let alone their deaths. Over time, the cemetery became overgrown, a chilling reminder of the lives lost and the lack of accountability. Some former staff members suggested that the true number of deaths at PennHurst may never be known, as records were lost or destroyed. Resident rebellions and acts of desperation. There were sporadic incidents of rebellion among the residents, who acted out of desperation and a desire for dignity. Some tried to escape, while others sabotaged equipment or hid food to assert control over their lives. Though these acts were met with harsh punishment, they highlighted the resilience of the residents, refusing to be completely broken by their circumstances. The silent witnesses, staff complicity and resistance. While some staff were complicit in the abuse, others attempted to speak out. Nurses and attendants secretly reported the mistreatment to authorities or journalists, risking their jobs in the process. However, these whistleblowers were often silenced, and many staff members justified their inaction by citing overcrowding, underfunding, and lack of support from higher authorities. This culture of indifference allowed the abuses to continue unchecked. The final days of chaos. By the 1970s and 1980s, PennHurst was in decline. Budget cuts, staff shortages, and increasing legal pressure further deteriorated conditions. Families began demanding answers, and the institution became a symbol of abuse and neglect. When PennHurst closed in 1987, it marked the end of its reign of suffering but left many former residents facing an uncertain future as community-based care struggled to accommodate them. The incidents at PennHurst Asylum represent a dark chapter in institutional care history. They highlight the consequences of neglect and societal indifference, serving as a cautionary tale. While PennHurst has closed, the suffering within its walls continues to resonate, reminding us of the importance of compassionate care for vulnerable individuals. The investigation into the atrocities at PennHurst Asylum marked a watershed moment in the history of mental health care in the United States, exposing a deeply flawed system that failed the very individuals it was meant to protect. What began as isolated complaints evolved into a comprehensive inquiry involving journalists, legal professionals, healthcare advocates, and the public, ultimately leading to the institution's closure. Initial complaints and whistleblowers. The investigation began in the early 1960s when families of residents raised concerns about conditions at PennHurst, including neglect, physical abuse, and lack of medical care. Though some were hesitant to speak out, others persisted in revealing the systemic issues. Inside the institution, a few staff members who could not ignore the abuse became whistleblowers, sharing details of restraints, overcrowding, and untrained personnel with journalists and advocacy groups, risking their careers to expose the truth. Journalistic exposés. A pivotal moment in the investigation occurred in 1968 when investigative journalist Bill Baldini aired a 5-part television series titled Suffer the Little Children. The series showed graphic footage of residents confined to metal cribs, lying in filth, and rocking in despair. It ignited public outrage and put immense pressure on state authorities to act. The exposé, along with interviews from former staff and residents, revealed the depth of the neglect and abuse, becoming a rallying cry for mental health care reform. Legal action. The case of Halderman versus PennHurst in 1974, Terry Lee Halderman's family filed a landmark lawsuit against PennHurst, claiming that her constitutional rights had been violated through physical and emotional abuse. The case, Halderman versus PennHurst State School and Hospital, was a turning point, revealing that many residents were subjected to experimental treatments, denied medical evaluations, and lacked access to education or rehabilitation programs. It also exposed financial mismanagement, with funds intended for resident care misallocated. Inspection reports, government oversight exposed following public outcry, and the lawsuit, state and federal inspections uncovered numerous violations. 1. Overcrowding. PennHurst housed over 3,000 residents in a facility designed for half that number, leading to unsanitary conditions. 2. Staffing shortages. The institution was understaffed, with many workers lacking qualifications, contributing to neglect and abuse. 3. Unsanitary conditions. Inspectors found overflowing toilets, rodent and insect infestations, and a pervasive stench of decay. Residents often wore soiled clothing for extended periods. 4. Abuse and neglect. Investigators found evidence of physical and psychological abuse, much of it unreported due to a culture of silence within the institution. Medical and psychological evaluations. Independent evaluations of current and former residents revealed long-term damage from PennHurst's practices. Many residents showed signs of malnutrition, untreated medical conditions, and developmental regression due to neglect. Psychological evaluations confirmed the trauma caused by the institution, with many residents displaying PTSD symptoms, providing irrefutable evidence of harm. Public hearings and advocacy efforts. Public hearings featured emotional testimonies from families, former residents, and advocates, shedding light on the abuse and neglect at PennHurst. Advocacy groups like the ACLU and PARC played a crucial role in amplifying these voices, organizing protests, publishing reports, and lobbying for systemic reforms. The role of the media and public opinion in media coverage of the investigation kept the issue in the public eye, ensuring authorities could not ignore the growing demand for reform. Public opinion shifted, with many questioning the ethics of institutionalizing individuals with disabilities. This shift laid the groundwork for broader changes in mental health care policy. The legacy of the investigation. The PennHurst investigation did not end with its closure. It fueled further scrutiny into systemic neglect and societal failure. Historical records, including patient files and internal memos, revealed a long history of mismanagement. Many residents had been institutionalized for arbitrary reasons, such as feeble-mindedness or delinquency, rather than medical diagnoses. Documents also showed the use of outdated and harmful treatments, including lobotomies and electroconvulsive therapy. Eyewitness testimonies. Staff and survivors speak out as the investigation progressed. Former staff and residents provided first-hand accounts, which were vital in corroborating the evidence. Staff members admitted to complicity, revealing the immense pressure they faced in an understaffed and overburdened system. Former residents shared harrowing stories of abuse, isolation, and neglect, highlighting the psychological toll of institutionalization. Uncovering the extent of abuse, further investigations revealed the systemic and pervasive nature of the abuse at PennHurst. Hidden rooms for punishment, abandoned medical equipment, and physical evidence of neglect underscored the institution's disregard for basic hygiene and safety standards. Deinstitutionalization and the ripple effects. While the closure of PennHurst was hailed as a victory, the investigation exposed significant challenges in transitioning residents to community-based care. Many former residents struggled due to a lack of support systems and societal stigma. These issues prompted calls for more comprehensive planning and funding for alternative care facilities. Academic studies and expert analyses. Academic studies analyzed the systemic failures at PennHurst, highlighting psychological impacts such as developmental delays and learned helplessness. Research also revealed how high turnover, lack of training, and low wages among staff contributed to the neglect and abuse. Experts pointed to inadequate oversight as a critical factor in allowing the abuse to continue. Public advocacy and awareness campaigns. Advocacy groups continue to raise awareness and lobby for systemic changes. Documentaries, books, and educational campaigns informed the public about the history of institutional abuse. Legislative advocacy led to the passage of the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, in 1990, promoting the rights of individuals with disabilities. Reopening the case. Paranormal investigations. Even after the formal investigation concluded, interest in PennHurst persisted, with paranormal investigators claiming to capture evidence of ghostly activity. These explorations, while often sensationalized, kept the site's dark legacy in the public eye. Though the focus of these investigations shifted to the paranormal, they helped maintain public awareness of the abuses at PennHurst and its broader implications for mental health care reform and human rights. This ongoing dialogue about the treatment of individuals with disabilities, spurred by the investigation into PennHurst Asylum, continues to shape the landscape of mental health care today, ensuring the horrors of the past are not forgotten. Theories and speculations. PennHurst Asylum's dark legacy of abuse and neglect has sparked numerous theories and speculations, both during its operation and after its closure. These theories range from explanations of systemic failures to darker conjectures about hidden agendas and even paranormal phenomena. Here, we explore the key theories surrounding PennHurst Asylum and its haunting history. Theory 1. A systemic failure of oversight. One widely accepted theory suggests that the issues at PennHurst were not isolated but part of a broader failure in mental health care across the country in the 20th century. 1. Lack of accountability. Critics argue that state and federal authorities were aware of PennHurst's conditions but chose to ignore them. Budget cuts, inadequate inspections, and minimal intervention allowed the abuses to continue. 2. Overcrowding and understaffing. Originally designed for around 500 residents, PennHurst housed over 2,500 at its peak, making proper care impossible. This overcrowding hints at cost-saving priorities over humane treatment. 3. Cultural attitudes. The stigma surrounding mental illness and disabilities likely contributed to public and policymaker indifference, allowing institutions like PennHurst to operate unchecked. Theory 2. A deliberate experiment in eugenics. A darker theory ties PennHurst to the eugenics movement that gained prominence in the early 20th century. 1. Sterilization programs. Records show that some residents were subjected to forced sterilizations, aligning with eugenics policies aimed at preventing those deemed unfit from reproducing. 2. Human experimentation. While no conclusive evidence exists, some speculate that PennHurst was a site for covert human experimentation, including untested drugs and controversial medical procedures. 3. Targeting the marginalized. Critics argue that marginalized groups, such as immigrants and the poor, were disproportionately institutionalized, often for non-medical reasons like societal prejudice. Theory 3. An intentional culture of abuse. Another theory suggests that abuse at PennHurst wasn't simply negligence, but a culture fostered by those in power. 1. Top-down corruption. Investigators believe that administrators knowingly allowed a culture of abuse, using physical punishment, restraints, and isolation to maintain control. 2. Profit over care. Critics argue that the institution prioritized financial gain over care, with funds misallocated, staff underpaid, and infrastructure neglected. 3. Power dynamics. The imbalance of power between staff and residents allowed abuse to flourish, suggesting that this dynamic was deliberately cultivated to maintain authority. Theory 4. Supernatural explanations. The tragic history of PennHurst has also fueled paranormal theories, particularly after its closure. 1. Residual energy. Paranormal theorists argue that the suffering of PennHurst's residents left a lingering energy within its walls, explaining reports of disembodied voices and strange noises. 2. Malevolent spirits. Some believe that the abuse and deaths at PennHurst have given rise to vengeful spirits, said to target visitors who show disrespect. 3. Portal to another realm. A more speculative theory suggests that PennHurst's history of suffering has created a metaphysical rift, turning the site into a hotspot for paranormal activity. Theory 5. A catalyst for mental health reform. Some view the PennHurst case as a catalyst for mental health reform. 1. Public outcry. Investigative reports, particularly Bill Baldini's exposé, sparked widespread outrage, driving the deinstitutionalization movement in the 1970s and 1980s. 2. Legal precedents. Lawsuits against PennHurst set legal precedents, including the recognition of disabled individuals' rights to humane treatment, leading to significant legal victories for disability rights. 3. Inspiration for activism. The PennHurst case inspired advocacy groups to push for systemic change, laying the groundwork for modern disability rights movements. Theory 6. Institutionalization as a warning. Finally, some view PennHurst as a cautionary tale about the dangers of institutionalization. 1. Loss of individual identity. Critics argue that institutionalization strips individuals of their identity, reducing them to mere numbers in an impersonal system, emphasizing the need for community-based care. 2. The risk of dehumanization. The case highlights the risk of dehumanization inherent in large institutions. By isolating individuals from society, these facilities foster neglect and abuse. 3. A warning for future generations. PennHurst serves as a reminder of the consequences of failing to prioritize human dignity and rights, urging future generations to prevent similar atrocities. The theories surrounding PennHurst Asylum reflect the complexity of its legacy. From systemic failures and cultural prejudices to supernatural mysteries and social reform, these perspectives provide valuable insights into the asylum's dark history. While some theories remain unproven, they continue to keep the conversation alive, ensuring that the voices of PennHurst's residents are never forgotten. Conclusion. The haunting legacy of PennHurst Asylum stands as a tragic reminder of a time when mental health care was deeply flawed and the rights of the most vulnerable were often ignored. Originally intended to provide care, it became a symbol of neglect, abuse, and suffering. Overcrowded rooms, unsanitary conditions, and the mistreatment of patients are etched in the collective memory of a society that failed its most vulnerable citizens. The investigation by journalist Bill Baldini in the 1970s exposed PennHurst's horrors to the public, but many questions remain. How much was truly uncovered? Did those responsible for the abuse ever face consequences? And more than 4 decades after its closure, were the stories of the residents, many unable to speak for themselves, fully told? PennHurst's closure sparked the deinstitutionalization movement, but the shift to community-based care has not been without challenges. While progress has been made, it raises the question of whether these programs are truly equipped to provide the care and dignity that PennHurst's residents were denied, or if we've simply replaced one set of problems with another. the asylum's haunting legacy has fueled paranormal speculation. Investigators are drawn to its eerie atmosphere, fueled by reports of strange occurrences and sightings, with many believing that the spirits of the forgotten residents linger. But what of the real experiences of those who suffered? Can we separate the ghosts of the past from the cultural myths that have taken root over time? PennHurst's legacy extends beyond history, leaving its mark on popular culture. It has inspired numerous works of fiction, documentaries, and reality TV shows, often highlighting the haunting aspects, while also reminding us of the real human suffering that took place within its walls. The unanswered questions echo through the halls. How many residents suffered in silence? How many stories were left untold? The legacy of incomplete justice serves as a testament to society's failure to protect its most vulnerable. As we reflect on PennHurst's story, it serves as both a warning and a reflection. It challenges us to pursue meaningful change, digging deep into the structures that allow such abuses to persist. How can we ensure that cruelty never again happens within institutions, mental, medical, or otherwise? PennHurst's legacy lives on in ongoing conversations about how we care for those with mental health challenges and disabilities, urging us to listen to the silenced voices and remember the stories that were never fully told. The unanswered mysteries of PennHurst remind us that as long as the past remains in the shadows, we are all still searching for the light.